tonight's action looks interesting. I'm not going to get to see it. I got to work all night. I work from 4:30 till 1:30. You know, there are times where yeah, and then tomorrow I work from, I think it's 3 in the afternoon until 10 at night. It just sucks. All right. That being said, you guys can watch the games for me. And we can discuss hockey, I guess, via Twitter, Instagram. We can discuss these matchups. There's 11 tonight. There were 14 yesterday. A lot of hockey. All right. Kincaid and Howard. Oh, and I want to say, too, people are going to say, well, what are you going to do about the power rankings? I'll do them tomorrow morning. I'm not going to try at 2 in the morning when I get home from work to do power rankings. 2 in the morning, I'm coming home going to bed. I'm done. That's it. I'm finished. So, power rankings will be delayed by some hours. I'll try to wake myself up relatively early, but yeah, it's going to be delayed tonight. Tomorrow. All right. And then next week, I have the exact same problem. That's the best thing. The only days I work are the ones where there's a lot of hockey. I didn't think this through back in September. All right. Kincaid and Howard, New Jersey and Detroit. Or I'm thinking Mrazek. It hasn't been confirmed, but I'm thinking Mrazek probably starts for Detroit because Howard was in net yesterday against Toronto. And Detroit's, stayed afloat. They're still in the conversation. They're still relevant. They were supposed to be also Rans. I was one of the ones that said, oh, well, Detroit's not going to make anything of themselves this year. Whoops. And Detroit's been pretty good. So this is a good chance for them to show that this isn't just, a small blip and that they're not going to fall back into mediocrity. If they can take out Jersey, and Jersey looked really good last night against Vancouver, it helps keep them in that conversation a little longer. And the more weeks that go on where where Detroit looks good, and New Jersey too, I guess, the longer this goes on, the more they start to look like a team that maybe just needs to add a piece or two to get over the hump. Who thought that would happen? And Mantha is going to come out. I think Mantha's going to have a great game tonight at home, New Jersey. I do. I think he's going to have a good game tonight. I'm an Anthony Mantha fan, and I didn't think I would be as recently as a couple years ago. Crawford, maybe, against Luongo. I'm thinking Chicago does play Crawford because they didn't play yesterday. So even though it's not confirmed, I'll go ahead and say probably Crawford. Luongo for Florida has been confirmed because Luongo is playing much better than Reimer. Luongo looks good right now, and he is hopefully going to get a win tonight. And I say that while I not trying to upset Chicago fans, but it'd be nice to see Luongo tack on some wins. I'm starting to wonder if this is his last year. I've started wondering if maybe this is Luongo's last year. It just feels a little different. So, maybe. Which would involve then his rights would probably get transferred back to Vancouver because, of course, if he officially retires, it's a cap penalty against the Canucks. More likely would be his rights being traded to the Canucks and then them trying some LTIR or something or other. And with the numerous injuries Luongo's had over the years, I'm sure you can find something that hasn't healed properly. Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. Neither goalie's been confirmed, but I think it'll probably be Murray. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Vasilevsky. This is going to be an interesting one. So Tampa's coming off of a loss against the Capitals. Pittsburgh is coming off of another loss, and this time against the Bruins, 4-3. And Pittsburgh needs to turn it around. Pittsburgh right now is below the playoff line, and I don't think anybody expected that coming into the season. Even those of us that said their weaknesses were there as a result of the losses they suffered after the cup win. I still think if they make the playoffs, I wouldn't want to play them in the first round. I still think if Pittsburgh makes the playoffs, I don't want them in the first round because the Penguins have this whole championship winning mojo to them. and I wouldn't want to play him in the first round. I would expect a big game from both teams. I would expect a very, very good game tonight. And now with good games being where they are, sometimes they're 2-1 and sometimes they're 6-4. But I do expect a very good game. I think it'll be low scoring. And I would expect Crosby to score because he's overdue for a scoring binge. And, you know, there was all this talk about him being a disappointment and his struggles, and he hasn't scored a goal in X amount of games. It's Crosby. It doesn't matter. He'll turn it around. Buffalo's in Montreal. So Buffalo is likely Leonard. Could be Johnson. Carey Price is back for Montreal. This is when things get interesting. Because Lindgren played very, very well while he was gone. Now, Lindgren showed some weaknesses towards the end. But, of course, Charlie Lindgren, nobody ever believed that he was going to be like a Vezina caliber Bobrovsky out of the gate. But it does leave Montreal with an interesting quandary. Now, do you play Price a lot? Or do you keep Lindgren around and have them split starts? Honestly, until Price shows that he's 100% okay and his stats show it too, I would keep Lindgren around and play him in half the games. And, you know, I'd be very careful with it. I would talk to Carey Price first if I was the one making that decision. But I would absolutely be completely fine with Price Lindgren as an equal tandem for now. Once Price shows that he's back to being Carey Price, which he hasn't been this season to start with. Before he went out with this injury, he wasn't Carey Price. Something was wrong. So, until he shows he's back to being that Carey Price, I would keep Lindgren around. Absolutely. And start him. So that'll be interesting, because Buffalo's coming off of a win, and they're going to want to build on it, and their target is Montreal. The first team they can pass in their division is Montreal. All right, they got Florida too. So Florida and Montreal are both reachable for Buffalo, showing just how weak that division is right now. The Islanders and Ottawa. Ottawa has to get a win here. The Islanders can really put the boots to them. Now, these two teams, of course, this is the Alexei Yashin Cup. These are the two franchises that Alexei Yashin held back for a while. And they're both teams that have had a spotty drafting record over their histories. Well, no, the Islanders had a great drafting history until after the dynasty was over, and then it got spotty. But right now, when you look at where they are, Ottawa's coming off of a year where they were a Final Four team. Large part due to Erik Karlsson, who was a steal where he was in the draft. And the Islanders right now are being led by their #1 draft choice, John Tavares, and a recent top draft pick named Barzal, who Bruins fans have argued over the years, well, we didn't need Barzal anyways because we had to draft other guys who met our needs. I would love to have that debate with a Bruins fan right now about how we wouldn't need Barzal's 20 points from center. But I digress. Oh, Barzal and Pasternak would have been awesome. Anyways, Barzal and the Islanders come into Ottawa on a hot streak. And I know there's people who say, we still don't expect them to make the playoffs. They will. I really believe they will. And Ottawa, I'm going to come out and say, I really don't think Ottawa, as it stands, is good enough to make the playoffs. There's something way off with Ottawa. And the first thing that they have to figure out is, here's a question mark next to Anderson. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Condon starts tonight. But Ottawa needs a viable option if Anderson continues to struggle. And the Islanders are coming in with a lot of offense, firing on all cylinders. This could get ugly. Or, if Condon's in there, he could steal one. If he's last year's Mike Condon. Last year was such an insane ride for Ottawa, right? You've got Anderson had a tremendous season statistically. There was the emotional lift of his being at his wife's side. And Condon coming in as sort of an emergency replacement and playing really, really well. Again, the emotional lift of the Anderson story. And it's almost as if the Islanders don't have that right now, the Senators don't have that emotional lift right now, and Karlsson is playing hurt. So there are issues here. We'll see if they can fix him tonight. And Duchesne needs to get some points. He's got to get his confidence going as well. So there's a lot of things in Ottawa to look at that make me concerned as a person who would like to see Ottawa do well. Washington's in Toronto. So both teams won last night. Washington beat Tampa. Toronto beat Carolina. Toronto's got McElhinney, is confirmed. Holtby's likely for Washington, although I don't know. I might be tempted if I was Barry Trotz to throw Grubauer in here. Grubauer's got a piss poor record right now. I know he's got a really poor record right now. But to me anyways, Grubauer would be an equal match to McElhinney in my eyes. And this might be a spot to play him in a back-to-back. The only thing is, he does have that poor record. You need every win you can get. Holtby's the guy who gets all the wins. It's tough to argue against Holtby. So, we'll see. But I would look for Ovi to get a goal tonight. I'd be very surprised if Ovechkin and Matthews don't both get goals tonight. Because it's a big game. It's a Saturday night. It's hockey night in Canada. And it's in Toronto. I think this is the kind of game that Ovi gets up for. And this is the kind of game that Matthews usually excels in. So we'll find out. Minnesota, St. Louis. It's Dubnyk. It's Allen. It looks like it's going to be a defensive matchup. That means it's going to be 6-4 or 7-5. Some insane score like that. St. Louis is coming off of being shut out last night by Nashville. They're going to come out early, looking for any and all goals they can score against Dubnyk, and I would be very surprised if St. Louis doesn't win this. And if they don't win this like a 4-1 score kind of thing, and I don't say that as an insult to Minnesota, I say it because St. Louis doesn't want to lose any ground on the teams behind them in Winnipeg and Nashville. And last night they lost ground on both. So tonight I expect them to come out and play fantastic, really great hockey. They played well last night. They just didn't win it. So I expect them to come out tonight even more determined, and Minnesota may be victims quickly. Vegas and Arizona in a battle between the two logos that I don't really have in the right size. I mean, I kind of do. All right, I'll throw this one up here. Yeah, that's close. Yeah, that's good enough. There we go. So Vegas, and I don't have the Arizona one other than the one on the power rankings board, and I don't touch the power rankings board. Don't touch those ones. So Wedgwood is starting. Like I say, there's a question mark there. The question mark is, so Subban went in last night. Did Subban feel good? If Subban felt good, I expect him to start tonight against Arizona. Vegas on the road is different than Vegas at home. Vegas at home is deadly. Vegas on the road has been kind of vulnerable. And Arizona has been playing very solid hockey. I saw a couple of tweets last night that were actually retweeted by the actual Arizona Coyotes, by fans of Arizona saying the team's playing very, very well. And even though they don't have a good win-loss record, they think this is the best Arizona's team has looked in years. And I agree. The Coyotes are playing very solid hockey. It just doesn't show in the results. And, you know, it sort of reminds me of the argument I've been having about the Flyers as well, that the Flyers have been playing, the first 10 games of the year, the Flyers were playing fantastic hockey. And then I think something happened psychologically, and they're not playing as well since then. But there's definitely something going on right now with Arizona that the team has started playing a very, very solid game. And I really think Arizona, while they'll miss the playoffs, they're not a team that I would look at on the schedule right now and say, there's an easy win. So I would not be surprised if, upset of the night, if Arizona knocks off Vegas. Because Arizona has been playing very solid hockey. And Wedgwood can steal them a game or two. He's not as good as Ranta, but he's good enough. And if Legacy starts again for Vegas, I would expect Arizona to take advantage of that. I would expect Subban in before the end of the game. And that's not a slight at Legacy. It's just with the way that the young players in Arizona are playing right now, the game they had last night against the Kings, I would expect them to come out very solid against Vegas, and I would expect Legacy to allow a couple of goals and then see Subban in the net again, if he feels good enough to play. But again, if Subban feels good enough to start, he gets to start. Absolutely. Calgary moves on. They're in Colorado. So both of these teams had tough losses in that Colorado loses in the shootout. Calgary loses a game against Dallas that I really thought they should have won. Really, by the way that the game went back and forth, I really thought it was the Flames' game to win, and I was kind of surprised they lost it. Smith or Bernier? Bernier's highly likely. I believe Varlamov's still out. And Smith is extremely likely because there really isn't a whole lot of other options right now in Calgary. And they want to make more hay, and they didn't do that last night. Calgary is right on the verge. They're right on the verge of people saying, hey, they're Stanley Cup contenders. They're right that close. They're this close. And they just have to get some wins here. Start in Colorado. And I say that as a non-Calgary fan. The guy who doesn't cheer for the Flames, I'm still saying, hey, win some games, make another Canadian team a contender. That'd be fun. Winnipeg, San Jose, Hellebuck, and Jones. I would be very surprised if it's not Dell for San Jose. Dell's been playing well. And for Winnipeg, I don't know. You could give Mason the start there. You could. You could see Mason and Dell. So Winnipeg is in a position where they'd be leading probably any other division. But because they're in the Central, they're sandwiched between St. Louis and Nashville, which is a rock and a hard place. And honestly, whoever finishes second in that division is going to have a brutal first round. Finishing first, being the number 1 team in the West and getting to play the number 2 wild card. And I realized that last year the Predators came in as number 2 wild card and they went and won the West. That's not going to be a thing every year. So finishing first and getting that number 2 wild card in the West could be very important this year. And Winnipeg, if they really want respect and to do something in the playoffs that they've never done before, finish first in that division, you've got a very good chance at doing something special. San Jose, on the other hand, they're below the playoff line right now, and they want to get back into it. It's a really close race in the West, and I showed that at the quarter mark video that I did. There are so many teams so close. Sharks got to win this. Because at some point, it's going to start to spread out between those teams. There's going to be a couple who fall out. You don't want to be that team that falls out. You don't want to have to climb over 6 or 7 teams to make the playoffs. So win the games now. Stay in the hunt. Stay 1 point back or right tied for that last playoff spot. Don't fall back. Gibson and Quick. Anaheim, LA. Probably Gibson. Yeah, Quick. Absolutely Quick. I don't know why they didn't have yeah, because it was Kemper that played last night. So yeah, it'll be Quick. Quick and Gibson. The Kings are I don't know how far down the Kings are going to go. And it's weird because Dustin Brown is still playing well. Kopitar's still playing well. But the Kings, it's dried up past that. It really has. The Kings have got some issues. And unless they win this game 8-0 tonight or something crazy happens, tomorrow's power rankings are going to show a pretty hefty drop for the Kings. I mean hefty. So, they need a big win, and yet at the same time, I don't have Anaheim very high in the power rankings either. So a win over Anaheim, no matter how big it might be, won't move them up the charts very much. It'll be very interesting. And I have to say, too, that in terms of power rankings and all this, it's almost giving me an aneurysm at this point at the end of the night when you have 14 games, 11 games, trying to figure out who moves where. I'll put it this way, and I'll end it off this way. I've had days where a team will move up 3 spots based on a big win they got, and by the end of the night, after all the other games are played, they're in the exact same spot where they were at the start of the night. Because everybody else won too. And it's like, oh, okay. all right. And winning streaks, they're not making a huge difference in the power rankings either, as it is and as it stands. But again, we can have that argument tomorrow. So thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. Just happened upon this part of the internet. And I'll talk to you guys again later.